Believe it or not, it's another VO podcast with three guys who are full-time voice actors at different stages of life, career, and location.
But they have formed a bond and work together to hold each other accountable and help each other on their VO path.
Three guys from different backgrounds working together, helping each other, and sharing with you along the way.
Hey, what are we calling it again?
It's another VO
podcast.
Okay, guys. Sorry, I get it. Come on, you're not my dads.
How you guys doing?
Doing pretty good.
You know.
I think I started off last episode like that too.
Yeah. Well, iffy. I guess that means you're going through the VO grind.
Right.
And here it is. We're recording on a Friday this time, which is not our usual recording time, but
It's when we drop episodes.
the week,
though.
it's that we dropped the episode, and because everybody's certainly tired of auditioning and they want to take a little break.
Amen, brother.
Yeah,
Amen.
yeah, I know. Me too. Yeah.
I hit a dry spell on voices.com. I don't know what happened. I booked 2 jobs, and then I go like 2.5 weeks without a short list.
Shit.
And that's hard on your ego, but on the good side, you're over on 1, 2, 3, still booking jobs, still getting short lists. I'm
It's
like,
so
what the heck?
weird. Yeah,
What-
that they're
direct
not
lines.
consistent. That
Yeah,
almost
What
says,
direct lines,
can it
man?
really be my performance, or maybe it's something else?
Yeah, it does make you second guess yourself, but that's this career we've chosen.
You
know?
also made
Yeah,
a good
it
point
is.
when we were talking about it off the podcast too, that because it doesn't matter so much on VDC, like you audition for everything, right? I
Mhm,
mean, like it doesn't
mhm.
affect your algorithm like it does on 1, 2, 3. So if you're going to audition for everything, there's always that possibility, like majority of the time you're not
Yeah.
going to get shortlisted because
It
as,
happens.
As long as it's not a female or another ethnic group, I'll go
Right.
for it. Why not?
Right.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And it's weird how the types of auditions kind of come in waves too. Like
Yeah.
you don't see all the different genres or something that might be have something that includes your sweet spot
True.
all the time.
Quite true.
So.
Quite true.
Well,
I guess
before
we don't have a top 5 or anything today.
No,
Come
no
on.
top 5. We've got to get to our guy in the green room that we've got. This is our guest weekend or guest podcast where
Yes.
we have somebody that we bring in and interview. And what the heck, Jake? All this says is Jake's neighbor. Are
yeah,
we getting that desperate for podcast guests?
yeah. I asked around and it was only this guy.
Jeez.
So,
We got to
Holy
do a little bit
smokes.
better job than that.
I'm just kidding. It's not just this guy, dude.
There goes the
It is.
neighborhood.
Yeah.
You know?
All right. Well,
No,
he's been quiet long enough. Let me welcome to the podcast Charles the Voice or Da Voice, Charles Coates. Welcome, Charles.
Hey, how you doing, everyone?
Doing
Good to have you
dude.
here on another VO podcast.
Yes, it is.
I'm glad I could be the neighbor
Yeah.
that can fill in for your needs today.
Thanks for
Once
doing that,
again,
buddy.
my
Yeah,
neighbor.
that's right. Well, we're glad to have you here. We wanted you here. We invited you here. It's not just to the listeners. They certainly know we're joking.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
No. But
You
kick
better
off your
know.
loafers and get your sweater. You know.
Right, yeah.
That's right. That's right.
I'm supposed to put clothes on? Oh, my bad.
It's
Well,
Charles has been a regular in many of the voiceover Facebook groups. I've interacted with you many times, Charles, and as have Troy and Jake,
Yes.
throughout at least last year and maybe even before that. I don't remember when I first saw you on there.
I got you
But
beat.
You got me beat.
Charles
Yeah.
and I have even slept together.
Oh, man.
No, wait a minute. Not that.
You're not supposed to
We
tell
just
me
we
all
just keep
that,
upping the
Grandma.
controversy
are,
here on
we're-
another VO podcast.
No, we're roommate. We were
Scandalous.
roommates at VO Atlanta, and we're planning on doing it again.
There
this
you
Good
go.
night,
so-
everybody. No.
Yeah.
Well, Charles, what we like to do when we have a guest on is hear their story and give really listeners, people who listen to the podcast, and also maybe see you on the Facebook groups and the VO Facebook groups,
Mhm.
a chance to hear your origin story. Every hero has an origin story, right?
Yeah.
So, how did you get into VO? What attracted you to it, and did you dive in? Did you just start dipping your toe in the water? Tell us all about how Charles Coates became Charles Da Voice.
And don't leave anything out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, first off, super stoked to be on the show with you guys. Like I said, we always chat offline and on Facebook, and when we get to meet each other in person. But appreciate it. It's an honor to be on the show with you guys.
Oh, dude, glad to have you.
Absolutely. You're
Yep.
welcome.
Glad to have you. Always.
So long ago. No. So I used to be many things. I worked in the medical field, worked as a FedEx driver. My family's owned restaurants growing up, always interacting with people. And I was a learning and learning and development program manager for Expedia and Hotels.com. So I traveled around the world probably 80% of the year,
Wow.
which was amazing and tiring and amazing, all in the same breath. But my profession before this was I was a learning and professional development facilitator and speaker for American Airlines.
Okay.
And so there was a special team, and we would run all the leadership classes for um, managers, senior managers and above, directors. They would come to our leadership classes, and I loved it. It was fantastic because it was all in person in class, 1-day sessions or 2-day sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And COVID happened. And I think that's the
Yeah.
story for a lot of people that kind
So many
of
people.
I remember
got
something about
into
that.
this. Yeah,
Yeah.
that virus thingy that was happening. And the airlines, I mean, they were impacted like no other, right?
Mhm.
Because literally their business is flying people around, and now everybody's like, we ain't going nowhere. We can't. Like we got to be in our houses, and I don't want to be around anybody. And so the airline was bleeding arterially, like they were sinking, and they had to make some business decisions, which I totally understand, because I thought about it and I was like, why are they they got rid of pretty much our whole department. And I was thinking about, I was like, why do they get rid of our department? Like, we're leadership. We need now is the time we need leaders. But then I thought about it. I thought about the movie, The Martian. And you know how he's on the rocket ship at the end, and he needs to get enough altitude to get
Yes.
out of the planet's gravitational pull?
Yep.
Well, I kind of thought of it like that. It's like, okay, he needed to lighten that rocket ship up to get to survive, basically. And
Spoilers if you haven't seen that movie or read the book.
sorry about that if you haven't seen that 10 years ago movie.
Yeah, I think it's yeah.
I'm thinking they have to have flight attendants, they have to have mechanics, they have to have pilots, right? So all these critical systems are needed. And in the show, he's tossing out the seats, the extra cabinets, and I thought of my department as the big stack full edition of Encyclopedia Britannica encyclopedias. And it's like, we don't really need these to survive. It would be great to have a lot of information, but we need to make it. So they let us all go. And
Dang.
before they let us go, we had been taught, this COVID thing, quote unquote, was starting to, become a little bit more serious in the news and this and that.
Mm-hmm.
And so they basically told us to stay home. They're like, hey, we don't know what's going on with this thing. We're canceling all the classes right now. Just kind of sit back. And we
We'll be
jumped
in
on a
touch,
call
man.
every day just to see if we were alive. Like, we had no idea what was going on. But the crazy part is, I led a class Thursday and Friday before that Saturday message came out. And it's a small group class. We're doing a lot of interaction. I'm telling a lot of stories, this and that. And one of the directors for first class cabins came up to me after the class and said, Charles, this class was amazing. I wish I took it 10 years ago. And he said, you have a really good way of communicating and connecting with people. And, have you ever thought of VO work? And, when you work in the airline industry, there are pages and pages and pages of acronyms.
Yeah.
And I was thinking VO, trying to think of airline terminology. And I was like, velocity operations, like maybe that's what he's talking about. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what's VO? And he's like, oh, voiceover. And still my mind was in the airline thing. And I'm thinking like, oh, like announcements over in the airplanes or something.
Yeah.
And then I was like, voiceover work? And he's like,
Now
yeah,
boarding.
yeah, exactly. And he's like, no, I'm talking about, like commercials and video games and, voices that you hear on the radio. And I was like, oh, and I was like, no, I've never thought of that before. I didn't even know what VO was. And that weekend was the time we got the message.
Wow.
And so now we have literally no work to do, because my specialized department, we had no web-based training, no anything like that. And I had a couple weeks where, like I said, we just checked in once a day, just see how everybody was doing. And I was like, oh yeah, what was that VO thing he mentioned? And so I started looking it up, and I was like, maybe this sounds fun, right? It started out as this sounds fun because I didn't think I was going to lose my job.
Right.
I mean, and I moved here I was working with Expedia, and I was in China. I lived in China for 3.5 years,
Wow.
opening up Korean lines of business for hotels.com and Expedia. And they had called me over to be on this special team, and that's why I moved back.
Yeah.
And I thought that was going to be me. I was going to be an airline guy for the rest of my career. And so I started looking up this VO thing, and I was like, well, this will be kind of fun. I had a DJ company back in Missouri, and I just did weddings and stuff. So I had an old SM58,
Yeah.
Shure SM58 mic. And
The workhorse.
yeah. I mean, it's a great mic actually. And I didn't have a booth. I didn't know what I was doing. I had GarageBand on an old Mac laptop, MacBook, and I masking taped the microphone to the top of my coffee cup, which I think it might be this one.
Oh, wow.
and I was just recording into it, and then I was using GarageBand to mix in some background music, and that's where it all kind of started. And then it was now the voiceover thing is piquing my interest, and I'm getting more curious about it. At the same time, the reality of my job that I was currently in was slowly disappearing. And so now I kind of moved my focus over to that, because it was either, now, if you lose this job, what are you going to do? So I was getting resumes ready, putting them out to other companies, but at the same time, everybody else was letting everybody else go.
Mm-hmm.
So the job market, especially for management, it was like, you can come work at the stocking in the grocery store like tomorrow, because we're still selling food, but there is no management anything. And the crazy part is I just built my first house, and I was in here for 3 months, and I was like, I'm going to lose my house that I just built.
Right.
I'm going to have to sell a car. I was looking at things in my house that I was going to sell on eBay, and looking up like, okay, I need to donate blood, but I need to go someplace that'll pay me instead of just getting it for free, like crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Am I going to open a lawn mowing business? Anything. And that's where it all kind of started, and met Troy way back when.
Yeah.
Jumped
way
on
back when.
voices.com way too fast.
You think so?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think so. It got me a lot of practice, but at the same time, because I didn't know where I was in my voiceover journey, like coaches, well, I didn't have any coaches. I thought I had a good way to talk to people. I have that thing where I'm like, I can talk to anybody, anywhere, anytime.
Sure.
And that's great. But if you're not, it's a whole different world, right? You just think it's, oh yeah, I can do that. And it was great because I got a lot of practice, but then again, I was discouraged because I wasn't getting shortlisted, and I was waiting for replies like, hey, you didn't get it. You didn't get the part
Right.
for trying.
Oh, right. That doesn't happen.
It was killing me because I'm like, what did I do wrong? Like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And the thing is, I'm saying all this, but I'm never reaching out to coaches or anybody else to figure out, where I can improve. I'm just like, why is this happening? I have a good voice. Why is this happening to me?
Yeah.
And it was this battle in my mind, and it would gut me. Cause I'm like, man, I did 10 auditions this week. Now I'm doing like 20 a day. I'm like, man, I did 10 auditions this week, and I didn't even get anything back from anybody.
Wow.
And then you start doubting yourself.
Right.
And then you turn the blame away from yourself, and you're like, well, my equipment's not good enough. Right. It's like, oh, I need a better mic.
Right.
Well, this comforter that I have over my head, it's doing the job, but maybe I need to upgrade to a thicker comforter, just like all these outside things instead of like,
They can hear my comforter's too thin.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
That's good.
They can hear that.
Yeah. And so I started, I couldn't even afford, I was scared to buy a mic stand and pop filter, because a cheapy mic stand is, $20.
Sure.
And a cheapy pop filter is, $10-20. That's $40, which I didn't have. And luckily, I live in a neighborhood. Remember, I said I just built my house. I was like the 5th house in the neighborhood. So all these other homes were getting built around me. And they had piles and piles of scrap wood in front of these frames, and these house frames and stuff. And so I walked over to the contractor shed and I was like, hey, do you guys care if I grab some of that junk wood that's next to the dumpsters? And they're like, well, we can't say yes because if you hook your leg on a nail or something, that we told you can go there. But if we come back in the morning and some of the trash is a little bit lighter, then we're not going to say anything. And I was like,
Right.
cool. So
Yeah.
I got some spindles from a staircase and I chopped those at an angle and made my first tripod.
What?
With some felt pads on the bottom. And then I found next to the construction dumpster, I found one of those Christmas totes, those big Tupperware totes that you put Christmas decorations in and store them.
Yeah.
It was one of those. It had a crack in the bottom, but that was perfect for me because that's where the microphone cord went out.
Oh my gosh, dude, this is ridiculous.
And then I got just one of those mattress toppers from Walmart. And I hot glue gunned it in there and I read off my phone. I put the script on my phone and I put it inside there.
Yep.
And then I had a thick comforter this time. I upgraded to a thick comforter. And every time I'd read, my wife would come here or something, like after I'm done reading, I like throw the blanket off and like gasp for some fresh air. I'm like, because I felt like I was like in the middle of the jungle at 150 degrees in a sauna. Like it was nuts. Yeah.
Oh, man.
And then I used that wood to build my booth, and I treated it very well inside. And I still use that same booth to today. Like
that's the booth you're in right there?
Yeah. 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 It's a 4 by 5 by 8.
Wow.
Yeah, okay. It's a 4 by 5 by 8.
And is this not the most awesome VO story?
When most people talk about their hobo fort as their first, they didn't actually use hobo materials from the garbage like Charles did.
Yeah,
the real true hobo fort right there, folks.
I wish I had seen the spindle tripod.
My wife told me to take pictures. I have pictures of all this stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, dude, that's
I remember seeing the mic on the coffee cup.
We're definitely going to get your socials to put on here so people can go look this stuff up.
Yeah.
But, for sure.
Even my pop filter, because I couldn't afford that. I
this.
Yeah, I went to the Goodwill and I bought a crochet ring.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
It was a plastic crochet ring and I bought it for 50 cents. And I used an old dress sock that had a hole in the toe, and I stretched it through over the crochet ring, and that's what I used for my pop filter, and it actually worked pretty well. And
this is ridiculous.
It was,
So,
I mean, in a good way, by the way. Like
you're speaking the language of so many listeners to this and many other podcasts who are scared to take that first step or don't feel like they can afford to get the equipment they need to get started and just record the first thing.
Mm-hmm.
But here you did it, with scraps. Right?
Yeah.
So that's, listen, ladies and gentlemen, go record something. Scrap together a hobo fort.
Yeah. And I think what you said, Alden, is the key, is just recording something.
Yeah.
Because you can get in this business, I found you can get all your ducks in a row. As soon as you jump in, guess what? Them ducks are going to scatter. And you're going to have to get them all back in a row again eventually.
Yep.
So it's like you taking that first step, even if it's with your phone, just recording something and listening back, listening to some people and recording and listening back. Okay. This and that. And then getting with communities that are in voiceover. Using the knowledge, the years of knowledge that are in those communities. And it might not be paying for a coach that's out there that's a professional coach, which I think you should do eventually.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But you got to think all the people in those communities, the voiceover communities, they've been coached. A lot of them have been coached.
Mhm.
So you're getting a little bit of those. You're not getting the nuggets, but you're getting the gold. You're getting the gold dust. It's coming down, and now you're heading in the right direction.
Right.
Yeah.
And I started with that, and then with the little bit of money that you make, like okay, I'm gonna make an investment, and that's the thing you have to look at it as. You have to look at it as an investment
Yep.
when you start upgrading and doing things, because I mean, I've went through 4 mics to get to the mic I have now, and this one
Mhm.
works the best for me.
Yep.
I have a 416, and it works the best for me.
Yeah.
And now, if I had just when I started out bought this, $8,000 whisper room, $1,000 interface, $1,000 mic, and all this stuff, it wouldn't have mattered because I would have sucked,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
It'd been real hard to make that money back.
exactly, and I think I appreciate it more too, because
Yeah, you do.
as you gain a little bit and a little bit, you're like, it's finally coming together. All the Lego pieces. Oh, it finally looks like this thing that I wanted, and this thing that's going to help me.
Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah, it's definitely a journey. And I know it's so cliche when people are like, "Oh, it's a marathon, not a race. It's a marathon." It's so true. It's uncanny. Like, you have to have that mindset, especially when you start.
And
You
so many
have to
people
have
don't want it to be a marathon, but I mean, it's like we talked about that, and I think in the last episode too, about like the seduction of the exception, where people see like people's programs out there, and then they think like, oh, if I take this program, then I'm just going to skyrocket to making
Yep.
great money in voiceover. And it's like, no, you're not. I mean, like,
No.
there's like one lucky person out of like thousands of people, right? Like,
Mhm.
and that
Yep.
just and everyone wants to believe that's going to be them, but more likely than not, it's just not going to be them. But man,
Right.
just like hearing everything you did, like just to go from like not knowing what VO was, and I relate to you, by the way, on the acronym thing, because I came from private aviation, so
Okay, you
I
know
know all the
exactly.
acronym, yeah, all that
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
So but like not knowing at all what it was, and then just like figuring things out to where literally like taking things off of the street to get you to a place where you can record and like start auditioning for jobs, like, and working on your sound, figuring out what sounds right. Like, if you're listening to this episode right now, like Charles is basically embodying every episode we've had leading up to this, about all the things you got to do. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? Like, start recording, start little,
Yep.
then you grow it. You make a little bit of money, invest it back into your business. Like, we have talked about everything Charles is saying. We have talked about, and he's just telling us how he's done it his way. You know what I mean? Like, that's how
Yeah.
you have to
Yeah.
be in this business, and really any business. So that's just,
Mhm.
I was not expecting all that. And I don't think I knew any of that.
I didn't either. That's
So
pretty cool.
yeah. Oh,
But
100%.
actually, I'm not sure anybody actually knew this. This podcast was almost called another Velocity Operators podcast.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, wow. I was like, for a second, I was like, "What?"
That is not true, by the way.
I got a question. Easy question. Do you remember your first paid job?
Yep, sure do. I'll never forget it. And
Yeah.
when I got paid for that first job, so it was a guy from Oregon State University, and he was a poet. And he reached out and he was like, "Hey, I would love it if you could read my poem and record this poem for me." And because I've wrote tons of them, but I've never heard anybody else read it before. Right? I've never heard my poem said by somebody else. And I was like, "Yeah, no problem." And here's the thing. I was like, "Yep, no problem. I'm a professional voice actor." Right? Like,
Hmm.
I went in with the mindset of,
Yeah.
I'm not
You're
gonna tell
already
this
doing this.
yeah, I'm not gonna tell this person like, "Well, it might not sound good," or, put all this self-doubt. I just came in there and said, "Sure, no problem. I'll do a couple takes for you." And I sent it to him, and I listen back to it now, and it's so bad. It is
Oh,
so bad. Like, when I say it's so bad, it's the recording space. Like, I could
Right.
hear
Sure,
everything.
sure.
Now that, I've been doing this for a while, like, you know how we are. We listen to a commercial and we're like, "What? They didn't take that click out? Or they didn't what is
Yes,
that?
I know.
Is that a lawnmower? Like, what's
Right.
going on?"
is that a lawnmower? Probably.
That must have been a Wednesday, because that's definitely the trash truck, right?
Yeah.
And when I got it back to him, he's like, thank you so much. Wow, this is so amazing. Like, it's so great to hear it, and thank you so much, and this and that. And I made I made less than $5 on that.
Oh, wow.
Less than $5, but it blew my mind that somebody had paid me money
Right. Yep.
to read something for somebody else, and it was that little bit of whatever it was, and I was like, it just blew my mind, man. I was like, wow, I got paid for this.
Yeah,
All
you
I did was
did.
record some words that somebody sent me. Yeah,
Do
but
you think you were hooked right then and there, or were you already hooked?
I think I was hooked. I was hooked then. I was not necessarily hooked, but trapped. I felt
Sure.
because of all the stuff that was happening, and I kind of got like, okay, well, I'm skipping the frying pan and I'm jumping straight into the fire, like both feet, both hands, no safety rope. Like I got to do it, you know. And so, but when I was paid, I was like, whoa, I can make money from this. This is amazing, and that's that's how it all started. I
So
actually need to reach out to that guy just to be like, hey,
Can I read more of your
thanks.
poems?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
and they say, yeah, I got $5 more.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
here's my new rate sheet.
Unfortunately, it's going to cost you a little bit more.
Right,
Sorry.
right. No, but
So-
that's a good idea to reach out and say thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
I think we
yeah.
all remember our first jobs. Have we ever talked about that, guys? Like, have we talked about what our first job was?
Maybe. We
What was
might
your
have
first
mentioned it
job?
here or
I mean,
there.
you don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but
Yeah,
what was
I
your
wanna
first
hear.
job?
I did
Oh,
an
gosh.
IVR voicemail greeting for a law office in New York.
That's awesome.
That's a
Nice.
good first job. Mine
It wasn't
mine
bad,
was
yeah.
a
$25.
mine went on some kind of animation for a guy in another country, and it was basically me cursing and doing all this stuff about how this elevator smelled like piss and da da da.
Yeah,
da.
I do
It
remember
was
you talking
awful.
about
Right.
It was awful, but yeah. And like Charles, I got my $4.
Wow.
So to get into the mood, Troy, did you have to kind of make your booth stink?
It was in a room where the cat litter boxes were, so it was all good.
It all just came. He was naturally
And the
already
bad thing
upset.
is,
That's right.
I end up moving down here to the other end of the house in this nice area, and I'll be daggum if she didn't bring the cat litter boxes and put them right outside my
Oh,
curtain
man.
over here.
Voiceover method acting right there.
Yeah, there
That's
you
what it
go.
is.
Become the role.
Yeah, my first job came 2 weeks after I got onto Voices VDC, and it was for. Do you know where Godly ISD is, Charles? It's
No.
like south of Fort Worth somewhere. It's like out by like not Grapevine. What is it?
Llano
think of it.
Springs or something south.
Yeah, it's something south, but like it was I got paid $100 for it, and it was just for a website video for Godly ISD. That was the first job I got paid
Dang,
for
you
it.
got paid
And
$100.
yeah, it did.
Wow.
I didn't see that's the difference between me and Troy and Alden because and it's a good thing because they kind of came they both kind of got started on Fiverr as well as like
Mhm.
voices.com. I just kind of took because my dad had gotten into it and then he decided not to get into it, but he told me everything he was doing and he was
Mhm.
recommended by the guy he was learning from to get on voices.com. So that's what I did. I got a setup, I set up something in my, at the time, apartment closet, I had the money. So I went ahead and bought a year subscription for voices.com and just started auditioning. And literally 2 weeks after I got on the website, as far as having a full blown subscription, I got that job. And then jobs just started to follow. I
Wow.
was still working full time, but again, it happened. Literally, I got my first job like a week before everything shut down. A week, and then I was just working from home, so it was like perfect. It like fell right into that, and then I was just sitting at home waiting for things to happen because, like you said, people weren't flying. So those first couple of months, I was sitting there auditioning and watching Tiger King. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
So stuff like that. So
Carol
that's how it
Baskin.
fell into me. I feel kind of fortunate that and I had to come from an acting background. I had been represented before for like film, television, and stuff like that.
Wow.
I grew up acting in school. I grew up performing in show choir. I grew up doing community. I've done community theater for so long, you know what I mean. So I had a bit of an understanding, which is where we kind of differ on that. But I would definitely say all of that helped me just kind of take a larger step into voiceover. Now, is there things I'm learning, need to learn, and didn't know back then? 100%. But we all, And that's, again, part of this podcast is that we all have different journeys.
Yeah.
And like just hearing yours, man, is just like really, I'm just like, I know, like, I don't want to sound patronizing, but it's almost like, man, I'm just really proud of you for like doing what you did
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
get to where you are now. Cause I know you're super successful now. I know, I mean, like just us talking at One Voice the other day, you're just like, I mean, I've been killing it on 1, 2, 3. Like, I mean, like, and I'm sure cause you do have a Fiverr gig too, right? Or not
Yeah.
anymore? Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
so, yeah. So really quick, I do want to say one thing about Fiverr.
Yeah.
I think that by starting off on Fiverr, because there's so many people out there that are not corporations or big companies or anything like that, that are just regular guys trying to make it in, doing a video for a friend or doing a video for their office or things
Yep.
like that.
Yep.
And they don't have the big budgets. But
Mhm.
then again, I had zero training, I had nothing, and if anything, starting out on Fiverr for me, I have to thank Fiverr.
Sure.
Because I was doing like 1,700 word YouTube videos that were 6 minutes, 7 minutes final, final spoken word for literally like $5.
Yeah.
And that's insane, right? But it got me so much practice,
Mm-hmm.
right? It got me so much practice. I mean, it would take me ages to edit that before,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
And now I'm like a freaking ninja.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. And I'm ripping through stuff when I edit. And I have to, I cannot leave them out of my equation.
No, not at all.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
the practice and the chops and the customer service and learning how to talk with people and how to message back and forth, how to negotiate prices, this and that. It was a great learning experience, and it was tough at first because I was like, "There's no way I'm gonna make it. Like, I can't do this stuff for $5 and do all this work when I'm in there for one video for recording and editing. It takes me 4 hours.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't do it.
Oh, yeah.
Now it's
Yeah.
like almost 1-to-1.
Mm-hmm.
6-minute video, 10 minutes of recording and editing, I'm done.
Wow,
and
that's pretty impressive.
that's if it's like a script that or a client that I get a lot of stuff from, so I know the tone, I know what they want.
Right.
Yeah. So I would say probably 1-to-2, or 2-to-1 is probably the average now. But even auditions wise, when I see an audition come in on Voice 1, 2, 3 or something, I'll it'll probably take me about 5 to 8 minutes if it's a long one.
Mm-hmm.
And but before I'd get into analysis paralysis. I'd be like, well, I need to say it like this. Well, okay, well, I have to say, well, that didn't sound right. Let me re-record it, this and that and the other thing. And I'd do like three auditions a day. And then I'm like whooped because I'm like, whew, okay, I got 3 auditions in. And it's like, okay, well, now I look back and it's like, dude, what? We're
Keep
voice
going.
actors. Actors get jobs by auditioning,
Right.
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So
Right.
That's
Once-
where we have a lot of similarity. We took the Fiverr YouTube path, and I looked a little while back, and I saved all of those. I don't know why. I mean, because you got external drive, and you just keep cramming stuff in there, and
Yep.
it says it's only
Right.
8% full.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I looked the other day at the 2 clients that I had that were repetitive constantly on Fiverr and Upwork, and there were over 4,000 files. That's 4,000 YouTube narrations. They were done all in the range of $5 to $15 over a period of time, But like Charles said, yesterday I did one, and I still have one client left, but he pays way more. And it was 3,900 words. They're a lot longer. And I had that 3,900 recorded, edited, and moved over to the file in like 40 minutes.
mm-hmm.
I'm done. And it's 2 things. It's A, you can edit faster, but B, you learn to read so much better. You make way less mistakes.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
I only have to
Yeah.
go back and fix maybe 10, where I've hit my clicker 10 times, not 80 times like it
Right.
used to be.
Right.
And I'll never forget the first thing that I recorded. I didn't even know you could edit. I didn't know anything about the clicking, nothing. So I would read it and I'd mess up and I'd stop, erase it, and read it again. Stop, erase it, read it again.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Oh,
You know,
dude, yeah, I
I
have to
didn't
thank
the
know.
hard
Charles
way.
for showing me the spectral frequency thing about removing clicks on
I love
Adobe. I remember when he
spectral
showed me that, I
editing.
was like, no way. Because
Yeah.
I was trying to do that automatic click remover, which doesn't really work.
Yeah. Takes
Not too
out a
well.
little more than you want
Right.
to make it sound funny.
Sometimes. Yep.
Yeah.
No,
But
I love doing the spectral editing.
the like Troy was saying, you know, you learn as you go, and that's why it's such a that cliche of it's a marathon, not a race, because you will learn so much as you go,
Mhm.
and you will
Mhm.
shave off time here, you'll shave off time there, you'll learn how to get your money quicker. You'll all these little things sprinkle in, and you're just it's like a block when you start. It's like a block of iron, right? A
Mhm.
square, and you just start to hone those edges and hone those edges and hone those edges until finally it looks like a cannonball.
Mhm.
It
Yeah.
just takes time.
It does.
It takes time, and it takes you're going to get frustrated. Something's not going to work. You got your first Source Connect call and you're like, "Oh my God, like I don't have Source Connect. What am I going to do?" And you're freaking out, and hey, the client asked me what's my rates. Oh, what do I do? There's so many different things that
Yep.
you just can't prepare for
Mhm.
You
until it
learn as you
happens.
go.
Yeah,
Until
we
it
learned
finally happens.
trial by
Yep.
fire. A
Yep.
lot of
Yeah.
it was trial by fire. I had a
Yep.
lady last night had commented. I don't remember if it was in our group, one of them, and I was talking about how long it takes and da da da. And she came back and said, I'm retired. I'm 70. I can't take that long to be successful. Okay, I really didn't know how to reply
Yeah.
other than to say it's a great hobby. Also, if you're not
Yeah,
looking,
yeah.
and she was saying I don't have to make a living. I'm in great financial shape. I just want to do this. Well, then
Yeah,
play with
yeah.
it. It's
Yeah,
okay
you
to
just
play
wanna
with
do
it.
it, yeah.
Well,
It can
and we
be a
talked about
hobby.
this last podcast.
Yeah, yeah,
What is your definition of success? If you're only successful if you go out there and you're making, multiple six-figure income, that's the only thing you're going to take as success. Well, then you got to be in the top 5% of voiceover
Right.
actors, or you're
And
not
if
going to
you
be successful.
Right, and if
There
you
is
can't get
success.
younger
There's success across the board.
Mm-hmm. I think that also I think goal setting is super, super important, which I didn't realize before because I never set a financial goal per month, what I wanted to do, what I wanted to make. And once I did, I was like, I want to make $500 this month. And that was like mind blowingly like way out there. I'm like, I'm never going to get it, but I have to set this goal. Right. And then maybe you're
That's
at
a lot of $5 poems.
Hey, man. Hey, whatever you got to do, right? And the thing
Right.
is, because you set that goal, you have something to move forward to.
Mhm.
And then once you hit that goal, you just bump that goal up a little bit. And then you bump that goal up a little bit, and you bump that goal up a little bit. I did coaching with Brad Highland,
Yes.
and he was like, one of the things he asked me, he was like, what are some of your goals? I was like, I want to get, because I still don't have an agent. Right. But I still don't have an agent. But what was one of my goals for going to One Voice? It was, I want to learn more about getting an agent. So
Right.
I took a class with Lala Pedis
Yes,
because,
you did.
and she's an agent, and she has a company that's going on, and I wanted to ask those questions. I wanted to get the face to face. So did I have to invest a little bit? Yeah. I had to invest a little bit to take that extra class, that additional X session. But it's those things that make those goals that you sets other things in motion to get
Mhm.
to that goal. Because if you don't have that goal, then you're just kind of floating around being like, yeah, I'm doing voice acting, or man, I'm never getting any work, or, yeah, it's going okay. It's like, oh man, I made $500 again this month. Well, that's great. What are you going to make next month? Like, what is your
Mhm.
goal? And
Mhm.
so, talking with Brad, we talked about financial goals. What I was trying to get. And, I told him the goal that I wanted. He's like, that's no problem. He's like, you just got to do the things.
Right.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
particular thing was when I audition on pay to play sites, I wanted to win more auditions. I wanted to not necessarily get shortlisted more because that's going to come, but I want to win more auditions. I want to be the
Mhm.
person that they select.
Yeah,
And we
exactly.
did that stuff. And he was like, and your financial goal, he's like, you can hit that. The first month after the first month after I coached with him, I smashed that goal that I was like, okay, now it's the next big jump up. I smashed that by like 3 times.
That's what's up, dude.
Yeah. And so it's like it pays to invest in
Right.
coaching as long as you look at it as an investment, because when that money, like, you got to pay for that new mic or that new whatever, or that coaching program or that coaching plan or that workshop. It's money. It's man,
Yeah.
it's like, I'm not getting anything physically back for it. So it's kind of hard sometimes, like, but if you're in that mindset of, this is an investment for me and I'm going to go forward with that when I pay this, and then use the things, because I am now working with people that know what they're doing. They're coaches, they're professionals, they're in the VO business, making money now, actively working in the VO business. I'm telling you, man, it's like a light bulb that pops in your head. It's like, man, like, why didn't I do this before?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Why didn't I take that step before? Because I didn't move, because I didn't think everything was in line. I didn't think I was ready. I didn't have the right stuff, blah, 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 whatever. You can say whatever you want. You can make excuses for yourself all day long, but there's going to be that point when you realize, you're like, wow, I should have been taking my own advice. Like, somebody's like, oh, you need to go get coaching. Yeah, I need to get coaching. And then you tell yourself that, but you don't do it. Right?
Yep.
I need to reach out to so-and-so. Okay, yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, I need to do that. And then you don't do it. All those things, it's just like auditions. It's like, oh yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. Oh, okay, that's a good one. You're going down the line, but then you don't audition for them. Well, it's like, well, you knew what you needed to do, but you didn't do it because you didn't have a goal. So,
Yeah, you can't get different results if you keep doing the same stuff.
Yep.
That you've been doing. And I see reinvesting into your business as like building the base of the tower broader and wider.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't go taller unless your tower is wider, right? That's the analogy that I use in my brain.
Yeah, no, that's a
makes
really,
sense.
that's a good analogy, because you want to go higher. You have to have a more stronger, more solid, more concrete base.
Yeah, and you find it easier to invest in these things as you start making the money, because when you're bringing in $300 or $500 and you got to spend every penny of it on 2 sessions with a coach, you're like, gosh, I'm not, I'm losing money. Why am I doing this? I'm
Yep.
losing money. But you're still investing in what's to come, for sure. And I think people miss that sometimes. They think, well, I can't
And those
spend.
are tax write-offs.
Yeah, exactly. It's also a tax write-off, every penny you spend like that. But it's hard when nothing's coming in. I get that. And even now, the decision some months, oh, I had a great month. Maybe I'll go get some extra coaching this month. And once I see that, I even now, when I pass a certain income level, anything over that goes into my coaching box, and that's where I'm going to invest. I'm going to go to another workshop or another whatever, and signed up for one yesterday. Can't wait.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because people have to realize in this business, if you have a good month, right? If you have a good month, maybe that's gonna be a good next month income wise. And I've found myself even doing it. Like, man, I booked like some really good spots, and then I find I don't audition as much, because I'm like, yeah, I could take a breather. It's kind of like a diet. You're like, you start working out and you do this stuff and you lose a little bit of weight, and you're like, yeah, I can eat that, when you really shouldn't. Right? And then like, yeah, I can eat that. Yeah.
Yep.
You know what? It's fine. So I'm working out. I could eat that. And then next thing you know, you're like, wow, I'm 5 pounds heavier than when I started. And and it's kind of the same thing with voiceover. It's like, you gotta maintain that. You gotta maintain that cadence, right? And don't slack off, because there's going to be months that are great, and there's going to be months that are like, did I fall off the face? Is my mic working? Like, what's happening here?
Yeah.
Like, where'd everybody
Is the
go?
internet broke?
Yeah. Like, did all of a sudden, did somebody with my voice like do something bad and get canceled, and that's why nobody's hiring me? Like, you start asking yourself all these things.
It's
Right.
such a weird. It's like voiceover is so volatile, because my first 2 years were excellent. Like, my second year was better than my first year by double, and then my third year, I made more than my first year, but not as much as my second year. And then I hit this crazy lull that I had never experienced before, and it was so detrimental to my brain, dude. I would have nights that I would just be so down on myself, and my girlfriend got to the point where she wasn't like mad at me, but she was just like, why are you thinking all this stuff? Look at the stuff you have done. I was like, yeah, but I'm not doing it right now. Like,
Mhm.
why is that? Right? Like, it's so
Mhm.
volatile, but that's, I mean, we could go on and on about that. I did have a question for you real quick. I've seen some of the stuff you've done specifically recently. I saw you do I think it was like a back to school thing for Staples. Is that right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I've seen you do stuff with Chris Woodworth. He was on our podcast last month, and I just recently got to do something with him too. But like that was really cool. Y'all
That's
did a
cool.
scene from Surf's Up, the
Yeah.
Penguin movie with Shia LaBeouf
Yep.
and whoever else was in that movie. But those are really cool things. That was actually the first time I ever saw you, and then I actually ended up in an accountability group with you one time, and I recognized you and said you did something with Chris, and you're like, yeah, I did.
Yeah. Chris
But
is a good dude.
oh, dude, he's excellent. Such a
Yeah.
great guy.
He's
Super
awesome.
nice. Yeah, very nice. And he's got some good stories himself. But I was going to ask you, what's your like bread and butter of VO for you? Like, do you get more commercial work? Do you go corporate narration, e-learning? Like, where do you find that you're getting like the most
I
back
would
from in
I
VO?
would say commercial. It goes in. I feel like it's in seasons,
Mhm.
right? Commercial work is always kind of there as one of the things I get hired for. But like recently, it is time for enrollment for benefits
Mhm.
at
Yeah.
everywhere. So I'm getting a ton of that work.
Nice.
Financial, technology explainers, those kind of things. I seem to get a lot of those. And the friendly, not necessarily the friendly, but the person that they're always like, hey, talk like you're talking to a coworker, or like you're talking to a neighbor, or you're talking to a friend. I get a lot of those. And there's little things that I do. And I'll give you one of my secrets.
Uh-oh.
And okay, so here's the thing. It's not really a secret. We all know how to do it because we do it every
I
day.
already know what you're going to say.
Right? And
I don't.
and the crazy part is we hear it from when we start VO. You need to sound just be you. Just be you. We hear that so much.
Yep.
And in your mind when you start, you're like, nobody wants to hear me. Right? What do I hear out there? I hear the trailer voice guy in a world. I hear this
Mhm.
and come on down, blah, 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 blah. Sunday, whatever. And if we really think about it, we hear people being themselves. But what sticks in our minds is those things that are above that bar, that kind of crescendo above, that stick in our heads.
Yeah.
And once I really grasped just talking like I do, I was getting a lot more work.
That's
And
really cool.
because when you talk to somebody, if I say, "Hey guys, what's going on?" See that little thing?
Yeah, that little fry.
That's real people talking to people, right?
Yeah.
Talking to people. And I just think of that and I'm like, you know, we have all our coaching, we do all the little things. Who are you talking to? What's the situation?
Mhm.
Who are you talking to in this read? I make sure I do that. But then just add the little thing that is always me. And for me, it's this little cracky thing I do in my voice because it's me. Now, if I tried to fake a cracky voice because I didn't talk like that, it would sound fake. But because it's me, it's me. It sounds real. And when people listen to my auditions, they're like, yeah, that's exactly what we want. This is a friend talking to a coworker. Hey guys, you're in the break room. Hey guys, this thing's coming down. It's going to be pretty awesome. And that's just the way I talk. And because of that, I'm way more comfortable when I do auditions too. So that's my little my little secret is be yourself, which you hear all the time. But really, once you realize you can be yourself, like I tend to get much more work
And that's
because
definitely,
it's real.
and I don't know for sure if you learned it from him, but that's definitely something that Brad helped me kind of realize. In our last session, he told me to read something in a certain way, and I read it, and I'm going to tell you, it was like super effortless. And he
Mhm.
goes, "There you go." And he goes, "What are you thinking?" And I was like, "I'm honestly thinking like, it's that easy?" And he goes, "It's that easy." And like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I'm still struggling with it after the fact. And what kind of sucks is like I kind of came to that revelation on our last class, and since then I haven't been able, get back with him and whatnot, for my own reasons. But at the same time, it's like, man, like, what was I thinking when I did that? So now it's kind of like,
Right.
I
You're
need
like,
to get back to that place
I
where I
need the
realize,
recipe again. Like,
right, yeah.
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 Which,
Right,
real quick,
exactly.
for everyone listening, I'm sure everyone knows that because we've talked about it before, but all of us have trained with Brad, and we have nothing
Yeah.
but great things to say
It's like
about
a
Brad.
class
So-
reunion here.
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. So if you're looking for a coach and you're looking for how to win the audition or how to audition better, I'm going to personally recommend Brad Highland. I won't speak for everybody else, but I imagine they would feel the same way.
Yes.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Brad's awesome. And
Yes.
Brad's awesome at what he does, and he really cares about you. And
Oh,
when,
100%.
when people are like, "Hey, you know what? Just reach out to me anytime you have a question," something like that. I've heard so many people. They're like, "Yeah." So I've messaged my coach, quote unquote coach, and they don't get any replies back. They're like, "Oh, well, go to this website and check this thing out." I had a client that it was my biggest order to date, and it was actually at One Voice last year, and they came back to me and I won this big audition, and that was my biggest one at the time, and I was like, "Oh man, this is awesome." Well, after I got coaching from Brad this year, they had actually reached back out to me, and they're like, "Hey, we got like 4 more spots.
Nice.
Same campaign. We got like
That's the
5
gig.
pickups. What's your rate?" And then I was like, "Oh." And so I went to GVAA, I looked at the rates, and I was like, "Okay, this is about what it should be, I think." And then I was like, "Oh yeah, Brad said call him if I had any questions or whatever, just to, hang out
Yeah.
and say hi." So I called him, or I messaged him. I was like, "Hey Brad, can you jump on?" I was like, "I'm kind of in a bind. I'm a little nervous. I just want to make sure that I'm either not overcharging or I'm not undercutting myself either."
Right.
And
Yeah.
so he's like, yeah, give me like 15 minutes. He jumps on a Zoom call with me because he's like he loves Zoom, which I
Yes,
think
he
is great.
does.
Like he loves the
Yeah.
face-to-face.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, so the last spot you did for them, how many spots were there? How many pickups? This and that, or how many tags? And so I told him, and he's like, okay, what was the total price? And I told him, and he's like, how much did they charge for the directed session? I was like, this much. And he goes, okay, how many are in the new one? And he's like, okay, break down the number to make them even per spot. And that's the number you shoot out. And he's like, give him half off on the directed session. And I was like, okay. Which ended up being like $2,000 more than I was going to charge.
Oh my gosh.
There you go.
And I shot the number out, and I was like, okay, this and this and this. I'll do it for this much if that works for you. They're like, tick, tick, tick. Okay, yeah, works for us. Can we?
How long did you have to wait for their response?
Probably. Well, they responded quicker than an hour, but I had some other work to do, and when I checked, they'd already replied. And they're
Dude,
like,
that's got to be a
awesome.
great feeling.
That's awesome.
yeah, no problem. Great. When can we do the directed session next Wednesday at whatever time? And I was like, whoa, like Brad just made me $2,000 extra dollars, than I was going to quote. And that was the GVAA rate.
Yeah.
But
Dude, I love to hear that.
But I didn't know the breakdown. So when I broke down what they did for me in the past, it was a lot more than what GVAA rates were.
Right.
And so I just shot them that rate, and they were cool with it. They're like, okay, no problem.
He auditioned for a job a few weeks ago on 123, and he actually put on the front of the audition, I'm auditioning for this, but you need to look for Troy Holden's audition. He will kill this spot. And I booked it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Isn't that awesome? I mean, just
awesome.
somebody
That
to
is
refer
amazing,
you.
man.
And then he was immediately
good.
had sent me a message, dude, get on 123, this job titled this. And I get on there and I'm not seeing it. Well, then he went to them and they emailed me direct.
Nice.
And I sent the audition in direct. And then later that afternoon, it popped up on 123 because I'm in the other category. But I did get it.
Yeah.
And that was awesome, and it was, and they offered to pay him a referral. And Brad said, no, give it to him. He earned it. He did the video.
Damn, dude.
You don't meet better people than
You
Brad.
don't.
No,
Yeah.
you don't.
100%.
Dude,
And
that's
speaking of
amazing.
meeting people, I got to meet Charles at One Voice.
Yeah.
Did we
Hey,
want
I'll
to
tell
talk
you
about
what.
One Voice for a little bit?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't you hold on to that? Let's close out the episode because this is the longest episode ever.
Right,
But
right.
we kind of knew that was going to
It's
happen
good
because
stuff.
Charles is so interesting and his story is fantastic. We want to ask him more questions, and we want to talk to Charles and Jake about One Voice. So let's make that a new episode. Thank you for joining another VO podcast. We're signing off, but wait till next week because the next episode is coming.
All right, we're good. I'm just going to let it tail on to the end of
Okay.
this one. No
All right,
problem.
can I actually run to the restroom?
Yeah,
real quick?
Yeah, do that.
All right.
Open this thing.
You don't have a milk jug in your booth?
So you're telling me that wasn't
doesn't do-
sweet tea? No.
Yeah,
No,
you did. Wait, that's not
I
lemonade.
thought that tea was a little salty.
it's the Arnold Palmer.
Troy, do you want to take over hosting the One Voice part, the conference?
Well, I can if you
Well,
want.
I mean,
to.
just ask questions and
Sure.
interact.
Yeah, I can.
It'll be organic, I'm sure. Anyway,
Sorry,
but you can
man,
just open
like,
the episode.
when I was answering questions, like all these things were just flying into my head. So I was just kind of throwing everything out there. So I was sorry if I talked too much.
Nope,
No,
that was
you're great. No. It makes a great episode. And I feel like, especially. And Charles, just before we end the episode, why don't you give us how people can reach out to you and find you on social media?
Sure. You can find me on my website. It's www.charlesthevoice.com. If you're on TikTok, Charles the Voice VO, and also on Instagram, it's Charles_the_VO.
All right. Thanks, Charles. And stick
Thank you.
around, listeners, because we're going to be back next week with the rest of our interview with Charles and One Voice Dallas.
You've been listening to It's Another VO Podcast. I'm Alden Schenneberg.
And I'm Jake the Snake.
No, you are not. Settle down.
All right. I'm Jake Sanders.
And I'm Troy Holden.
Join us weekly as we spill the beans about our challenges being full-time struggling voice actors.
Yeah, and by the way, my girlfriend says you two better get it together, because she doesn't want me carrying you two on this podcast.
Saith the voiceover rookie himself. But be sure and join us on the next episode, because I guarantee it, Jake will do something worth hearing.
And what do you mean by that? No, really, what does that mean?
Dude, let it go. It's all right. It's all right.
Hey, where are you guys going? Hey, don't you kill the feed. Don't you dare kill the feed. Hey, where are you going, Alden? Troy, what are you... Come back!